Hi everyone. Okay, I guess this is part one of testimony time. Let's see, when I was 2 years old, my grandmother started taking me to church. Now, she had just got saved and nobody in the family really wanted to go to church with her or understand any of that yet. And so since I was little, my mom said, okay, take Christy to church. So grandma would take me, and then she'd tell me these stories as I grew up, just of when I was 2 years old. I saw this dove that was in her window at her house, at her apartment, and I said, Grandma, quick, come here, there's this huge bird. It was this beautiful white bird, and it was sitting on her windowsill, and she was in the kitchen, and I said, Grandma, come on, come here and see this bird. And she was like, oh, Christy, I'll be there in a second, I'll be there in a second. And finally, she finally came, and the bird flew away. And I said, Grandma, I was so mad. I said, you missed that bird. And she said, when I walked away from the window, I just started muttering something. I just started going, and Grandma just knew that that was the Holy Spirit praying in tongues at such a little age. And so she'd always tell me these stories, and there was so many times that I'd be with her at church or be with her as she's out on the streets ministering to people, and I was always just watching, like, what is my grandma doing? I didn't quite understand things. And to be quite honest, I grew up in a home with just my mom, and when she met my stepdad, it was my mom and my stepdad that I want to say raised me. And in our home they were alcoholics, and just half a block down the street was my dad, who lived there, and he was also an alcoholic. And so just being in that environment a lot really set so much maybe fear and I guess frustration, and I just didn't want to be home. I was upset at them a lot, just for never kind of being around and not being involved in a lot of things in my life. And I was a really good student in school, and I played lots of sports, but I think now that I look at that, that was a place where I was just really comfortable, was at school and learning and being busy doing other things so that I didn't have to think about those things at home. If I wanted to connect with my parents and they weren't at home, well, I knew the Legion's phone number off by heart, and somebody was guaranteed to be there, my mom or my stepdad or my dad. And so I guess for me, just growing up was really just frustrating and disconnected with my family and my parents, and you just try to find your way. Well, when I was about 15, my friend invited me to her youth group. She said, hey, why don't you come? There's just this thing I do on Friday nights, so come to it. And if it meant sleeping over at her house, I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll come. And so she invited me the first time, and it was different. I hadn't really been in a church before and understood why I was there, right? The pastor was preaching, the people were nice. It was good. It was a good setting, a good situation. And anyway, weeks and weeks went on now where she continued to pick me up, and then she took me to the camp. And I remember this one night, just being invited to the youth group and going to it, and I don't know, I guess my heart had really been changed and seeing things differently, and like these people really cared. And they said, why don't you, they did an altar call for prayer. They said, if you want prayer, to come up and the pastor can pray with you. And I went up there, and the pastor was busy, but his wife was there, and she says, oh, I'll pray with you. And so I thought, yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't too sure, I don't know why I'd even pray, but I guess something was really just stuck on my heart, right? So I prayed with her, and I prayed about my family and just the situation we were in, and that's it. That's all I did. Well, lo and behold, 1 month later, I remember waking up in the morning, and I got really mad at my mom. I was frustrated with something. I was embarrassed from the night before. They had a big party again, and it was just really, I was so tired of things. And you know what? I'd got mad at her many times before. But this time she said she just heard. She heard everything that I said, and she took a look at her life and decided it was time to change. So within 1 month of me praying, my mom stopped drinking. And my stepdad followed suit because, you know, she wasn't doing it anymore and didn't want to go to those places. And he said, well, neither do I. And then so did my dad down the street too. He also stopped, and he did it for other reasons, and he joined AA. And so there's the beginning. There's the 5-minute beginning of my testimony, and I'll continue it on the next video. But I want you to know something like that. I found something there. Something changed right there. And I was really happy about it, but I wasn't exactly sure what my next steps were.